Shabbat Shalom, which is peace on Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. As we pay attention to the things that are going on in the earth, man is about to get a test of his faith when we go through and witness all of the things that have been set up. When we just decide that we're not going to pay attention to the new way of discrete racism completely done against the children of Israel. When we just make it this black thing, then we don't really understand what's really happening. Yahweh has given the children of Israel a culture, and with us not walking in that culture, we walk head first into all of these attacks, and no one will deal with, even as people get together and march and they do all of these things. At the end of the day, everybody goes back home the same way that they came, with the same twisted mindset that we showed up with. So what ends up happening is the same things end up happening again, because there hasn't been a change in mindset. The same thing happens when people are in relationships and breaking up to make up, and they're going back and forth doing the same things. And if there's not a change in mindset, all you're doing is delaying the same outcome that you had before. And it's going to take some change on our part to be able to accept the things that we're always here. When you start reading in this book, a lot of times people think that you've come up with something new. No, it's always been here. We have just decided that we would gloss over a lot of things. But as time is counting down, we're going to have to put all of these other distractions and things behind us and pay more attention to our salvation. When you get down to uneducated slaves who didn't have nearly the amount of understanding that we have, they were more focused in helping one another and being there for one another. They were more focused in family than we are now. And we got all of these degrees, we got all of these things. These people, my grandmother was, we're talking like one of 19, and these people were able to survive. These people were able to do things. Now we are incredibly selfish. If you have more than 2 kids, people think you got a huge family. More than 3 people walk in the restaurant, they're like, wow, did y'all get here on the bus? What has happened that we're so selfish that we think 3 kids is a boatload of people? But this is what the setup of America has given us, and we are going by the mandate that they have given us, and not the things that is set up according to this holy Bible. But brother, would you read the oracles and entreat the angel that stands at the door to come in and sup with us, and us with him, that we may make this a holy convocation by the angel's presence?
1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Messiah, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as their children, and walk in love, as the Messiah also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather given of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim, for Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth. Therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
Now, in those oracles, what we read is, if any man opens the door, it is set how that door must be opened. Christ Yeshua is the door, and being baptized in the name of Yeshua is going through that door. The way, of course, we have gotten the setup of man. The Euro Gentiles have a real power complex, in that anytime they're dealing with this book, they change the names of the major characters. There are 1,000 names in this book. You know how long it would take to change all the names in this book? They didn't change all of them. What they did was went through and changed the major characters of the book. And we can read that even throughout the book. And it's not listed to any group of people. It's heathens in general. Daniel had another name. What we know is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That was not their names. Their names was Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael. All names that glorify the Most High Covenant God of Israel. But they gave us the names that glorify their pagan gods. The same way they gave us different names when we got here. Your name denotes your culture. This name of Jesus was not the name that was given. That name is Yeshua, the name that was given him. So when you talk about going through that door, what was altered right there at the door is the name, and it is written. It says there's only one name under heaven by which a man must be saved, and that name is Yeshua. So right off the rip, the adversary has twisted and thrown something in the mix, whereby millions are then have a stumbling block placed in front of them, and they have no idea. 2 Corinthians, let's begin today in 2 Corinthians chapter 12.
Second Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 1. It is not expedient for me, doubtless, to glory. I will come to visions and revelations of the Adonai. I knew a man in the Messiah above 14 years ago. Whether in the body, I cannot tell, or whether out of body, I cannot tell. Elohim knows. Such an one caught up to the third heaven. And I knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell. Elohim knows. How that he was caught up into paradise. and heard unspeakable words, which it is not lawful for a man to utter.
Right. When you talk about paradise, one of the things that we have to get out of is this entire make-believe story that everyone dies, zip tang, automatically goes to heaven. And we can't find those things written in this book. When the Messiah was talking about Lazarus, it said, he said, your brother shall rise again. She said, I know he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. She didn't mention nothing about heaven. Now, they walking with him. They were on the scene at the same time that Mashiach was there. And they wasn't talking about going to heaven. She was talking about her brother being raised up at the last day. See, the first thing we have to do is get out of these fairy tales. Man was given a paradise and man messed it up. You don't get another one. You got to fix the one you messed up. This earth was our paradise. Man was able to stick his hand in the ground and pull out whatever he wants. Man didn't even have to farm. Now you think he's going to give you another one after you tear that up? Do it to your son. See how it work out for you. Give him some, let him tear it up, and then just give him another one. See what he do. He going to tear up 4 more of them. Now you got to make him fix what he tore up. Then he'll learn how to respect what he was given. Go ahead.
Verse 5. Of such an one will I glory, yet of myself I will not glory, but in mine infirmities. For though I would desire to glory, I shall not be a fool, for I will say the truth. But now I forbear, lest any man should think of me above that which he seeth me to be, or that he heareth of me.
Now some stuff have to happen to you for you to be able to glory in your infirmities. See, you have to have been through some things. We want the power of situations, but without going through the situation. And that's not going to work. Go ahead.
And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure.
Right, so he's given so much and he has an ability so high that he's got an appointed problem that was given him. Go ahead.
For this thing I besought the Adonai 3 times, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness.
My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. In this weakness, he now has the ability to call upon Yahweh. It's something about that, the state of man's heart, and that state that allows change to happen. It's hard to change a hearted person. Oh man, it's hard to change, or it's hard to even reach somebody when they got a pocket full of money and everything working fine. Damn, I ain't trying to hear you. What I need to change for? I don't need to change nothing. Touch that heart a little bit. Let a few things happen. All of a sudden, your perspective change. Maybe I need to listen a little more. Right. But when man got, this is the warning that we were given in the beginning. It says, when you are fed to the full, don't forget me. Soon as we get what we want, we ain't thinking about Yahweh, we thinking about our way. Go ahead.
Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in mine infirmities, that the power of the Anointed One may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distress for the Anointed One's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong.
You learn more in a problem than you do when everything goes right. Almost everything that I've ever gotten that ends up being positive for me came through some kind of turmoil. In other words, I wouldn't have done it on my own. We like to believe that you think you so smart, don't you? You think you just got it going on. There's some things that you ain't gonna even do unless a problem or some kind of thing like that is in your midst. Go ahead.
2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 11. I am become a fool in glorying. Yea, you have compelled me, for I ought to have been commanded of you. For in nothing am I behind the very chiefest apostles, though I be nothing. Truly the signs of an apostle were wrought among you in all patience, in signs and wonders and mighty deeds.
And a lot of people like these names. You know, apostle is supposed to be a man who was self-taught. So, you know, you have all of these people talking about, oh, this, oh, I'm apostle this, I'm apostle that. And what happens is people don't want to be taught by a man per se. So then that gives them the opportunity to say that, you know, God taught them. What people miss about the Apostle Paul is that he already was raised under the Pharisees and already knew the ins and outs of the law. He already knew the ins and outs of this word. What he received by revelation was the fact that the Messiah, Yahshua, was Christ. And that was the new way. No man taught him that. He received that. But all of the parts of this book, he was taught that. Go ahead.
Verse 13. For what is it wherein you were inferior to other churches, except it be that I myself was not burdensome to you? Forgive me this wrong. Behold, the third time I am ready to come to you, and will not be burdensome to you. For I seek not yours, but you. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. And I will very gladly spend and spent for you, though the more abundantly I love you, the less I be loved. But be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile. Did I make a gain of you by any of them whom I sent on to you?
People do it all the time, and we love to have it so. They send preachers from one congregation to another congregation. The preachers stand up there, desire a $500 or $1,000 seed offering, and we give it willingly. I know, 'cause I did one of them. This man said, I didn't make merchandise of you. Why do you think the Messiah had to go in there and start turning over the money changers table? Because everything is about merchandise, and we love to have it so. See, we have a problem where we assess value by how much we paid for it. So people think their $70 shirt is more than that $10 shirt. They were made in the same place. Same person made the $70 shirt, made the $10 shirt. But we feel better. Yeah, you see that logo on there? Yeah, the same dude put that logo on. He had 10 logos he was putting on. Go ahead.
Verse 18. I desired Titus, and with him I sent a brother. Did Titus make a gain of you? Walked we not in the same spirit? Walked we not in the same steps? Again, think you that we excuse ourselves unto you? We speak before Elohim, the Anointed One, but we do all things, dearly beloved, for your edifying. For I fear, lest, when I come, I shall not find you such as I would, and that I shall be found unto you such as you would not, lest there be debates, envyings, wraths, strifes, backbitings, whisperings, swellings, tumults, and lest, when I come again, my Elohim will humble me among you, and that I shall bewail many which have sinned already, and have not repented of the uncleanness and fornication and lasciviousness which they have committed.
Right. See, we think we're being nice to people when we so-called turn the other way and allow things to happen. He says, I shall bewail many. This is New Testament now. I shall bewail many which have sinned already and have not repented of the uncleanness and fornication and lasciviousness which they have committed. The first thing people is going to holler, oh, you judging me. Judgment involves punishment. See, when you go downtown and go in front of that judge, you're going to know you're getting judged. Because afterwards, when he hit that, that's something you got to do. Somebody merely mentioning the sin that you have done, they ain't judge you. Now, if they got a bag full of rocks, then they judging you. Because judgment involves punishment. The punishment factor was taken out of man's hands. Let's go to Acts chapter 9. Because man has a serious problem with dealing with righteous judgment. And we can clearly see that when we go to any courthouse. All you see is us. And some of us who have gone to school in other areas, you get to those areas and you find out, man, I thought we partied. They party big time on the other side of town. Only thing is they don't go to jail for it. I had never seen party until I went to the other side of town. So man, look at this. And none of them going to jail. Police can show up and tell them, you guys calm that down. What? Bro, we get slammed upside the car, eat all kind of grass. You think you're a cow at the end of the night. Well, all that grass in your mouth. Doing the same thing they were doing on the other side of town, but then none of them people go to jail. But see, we got to the point where even we think we deserved it. See, this is one of those things where even we start to look at ourselves in the manner that they have taught us to look at ourselves. But when you go to school on the other side of town, you figure out some things. We get to fighting in school. Man, they call the police. Not only did you get suspended, you got suspended, then you went to jail. I went to school on the other side of town. They caught a dude with cocaine. He got in-house suspension. He's still in here. He got caught with that book of sugar. How he still in school? They left him right there. Right. Acts chapter 9, let's start at verse 1.
And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Adonai, went on to the high priest, and desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound onto Jerusalem.
See, this is a man who hadn't forgot his past. See, this is what happened. We got selective amnesia. See, when we start going through things, we forget that we done did some stuff. See, so, you know, the stuff that you read before, I glory in my infirmities. Yeah. He glory in them infirmities because he remember he did some dirt. See, our problem is we don't remember we did any dirt. See, he remember his dirt. And not only did he do dirt, he did dirt against people who were just trying to follow Christ. Go ahead.
And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus. And suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul.
Now why did it say Saul, not Paul? See, that's the Hebrew name. See, people don't catch that. People don't catch that. See, that's the Hebrew. The Hebrew, that's his real name. So people keep thinking, well, I don't know, they must have had the typewriter must have been messed up. He tried to put a P there, and then the S came. No, man, no. That's the Hebrew name. And see, you're going to find that in certain things like, wait a minute. Why is it one name here and another name there? The real one is there. Saul is the real one. But see, think about this. If I tell you Paul, what picture did you get in your head? It didn't look like him. I told you, name denotes culture. See? If I say Julio, what picture do you get in your head? It don't look like me. See? But if I say I'm going down, you know what I'm saying, Tyrone house. What you got? Hey, the picture you got look like this, didn't it? When I say Tyrone, right. So it's power in changing this name. Go ahead, brother. Did you have something?
Yeah. What they taught us in Sunday church was at the conversion, not that he was just converted away from his sins, but at the conversion, he converted from Paul to Saul.
And you know, it's interesting, man. In every point of this book where people can't explain what happens, there's a whole story that pops out. My only problem is, show me that in the book. That's all I ask. Just show it to me in the book. That's all I'm asking. And you'll find that all of these stories, they can't be backed up by what's in the book. So that means it came out of the mind of some man. The same way the Jewish do, they'd have all these rituals, and then you say, okay, well, show me that in the Bible. Well, it's not in the Bible per se. What do you mean per se? It's either in there or it's not in there. Then they got to go to a what? Another book, the Talmud, that was written by what? Men. So now you got to go to another man-made book and then find your rituals in there. Hey, man, why you can't find it in this book? That's a problem. Anytime somebody tells you that they got something going on, okay, show it to me in this book. That's how you make people accountable for the things that they teach. Show it to me in the book. Go ahead.
Saul, Saul, why persecuteth you me? And he said, who are you, Adonai? And the Adonai said, I am Yahshua, whom you persecuted. It is hard for you to kick against the pricks. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Adonai, what will you have me to do? And the Adonai said unto him, arise, and go into the city, and it shall be told you what you must do.
I'm curious, Elder Barak, in Hebrews 4 and in Acts, where they talking about the Messiah, and they or they talking about Joshua, and they threw the name Jesus in there. How they explain that one? They can't explain that one because they saw everywhere where it said Yahshua, and they threw in Jesus, and they did it too many times. And they was talking about Joshua in the Old Testament, and if you reading it, it'll throw you off because you're trying to figure out now how was Jesus in the Old Testament after Moses? Right. See, that's your clue. See, that's for those who study that at certain points questions supposed to come up. But see, we'll question everybody except when it comes down to this stuff in this book. We'll let things just go right by. That's an automatic question. How could he have been coming out the wilderness? Then if you got a study Bible, there's a little footnote there, a little letter, and then that letter send you to the bottom, and then it'll say Joshua. Right. How they make that mistake?
I was just explaining this last week in California.
Mm-hmm.
Exact same thing.
Right. How they make that mistake? But Yahweh left it there for you. Go ahead.
Verse 7, Acts chapter 9 and verse 7. And the man which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. And Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man. But they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias. And to him said the Adonai in a vision, Ananias. And he said, behold, I am here, Adonai. And the Adonai said unto him, arise and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Yehudis for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prays, and has seen a vision, a man named Ananias coming in, and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, Adonai, I have heard by many of this man, how much evil he has done to your saints at Jerusalem.
He don't want to lay hands on him. He want to lay hands on him, all right? He don't want nothing to do with this dude. No, man, this dude's a troublemaker. How many people think that about you? Read.
And here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on your name.
From the chief priest, he got this authority. See, people keep taking this apostle thing way out of context. By the chief priest, he got this authority. This man studied. This man was able to speak several different languages. He had dual citizenship. He was perfect for this job. But don't get it twisted. He knew the ins and outs of Mosaic law. Go ahead.
But the Adonai said unto him, go your way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel.
Right. He is a chosen vessel to go and spread this doctrine. The other ones wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. See, he's able to move in and out amongst the Euro Gentiles, teach, do all of these things, and teach the children of Israel who are scattered among them. Go ahead.
for I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake.
I will show him how great things he must suffer. Now, so he's called in suffering. But remember, all of the things that he had done to make other people suffer before his calling. See, forgiveness is one thing. Atonement is something altogether different. We want forgiveness, which is Yahweh passing over our sins, but we haven't had that sin atoned for. See, there's this going through this is his atonement for those sins of very people that he has persecuted. Now he gets the opportunity to get persecuted for the word instead of being the persecutor of people who are walking in the word. Go ahead.
Verse 17, Ananias went his way and entered into the house, and putting his hands on him said, Brother Saul, the Adonai, even Yahshua, that appeared unto you in the way as you cameth, has sent me, that you might receive your sight and be filled with the Holy Ghost. And immediately there fell from his eyes as it had been scales, and he received sight forthwith, and arose and was baptized.
Immediately he was baptized. Now, baptism, he is then born again. Now, those sins are set aside. Now his work begins. So understand, the adversary of the devil did a real heavy fix on us by changing that name of Yahshua to Jesus. If and I know Elder Barak got one, 1611 King James, and it don't have Jesus in it, because there wasn't no J in the English language in 1611. It didn't even get in the English language until 1630. So it wasn't in there. So we're talking about 1630 years. His name was not Jesus. Let's go to 2 Samuel chapter 12. It's amazing how when we get emotionally attached, people will say, well, you know, that don't matter. That don't matter. But I tell you what, let somebody show up to some woman's house and say, you know, your son is the father of my child. That woman gonna be adding everything up to try to see, well, when you seen my son? What month? Let me add this up. They gonna be making sure something. How you talking about my son is the father of your child? How old is boy? Well, he 12. How you gonna be 12? My son ain't but 20, so he had the baby when he was 8. Now, we ain't gonna let that kind of twisted man walk up in our house. How you let this twisted man walk up in your house? How you let a 1630-year difference walk up in your house? But you'll have a problem if an 8-year difference walked up and said, you my daddy? No, I ain't your daddy, boy. Go on away from here. But you let a 1630-year difference walk up in your house. Right. 2 Samuel chapter 12, and let's read verses 1 through 14. Now, this is after Dawid has, King Dawid has killed a man for his wife. He has set up a man. See, we have a tendency that when we do dirt, you know, we think it ain't as dirty if we get somebody else to do it. It's still dirt. Go ahead.
And Yahweh sent Nathan unto Dawid, and he came unto him and said unto him, there were 2 men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing, save one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and nourished up, and it grew up together with him, and with his children. It did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter. And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock and of his own herd, to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him, but took the poor man's lamb, and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And Dawid's anger was greatly kindled against the man.
Right. See, that's all he said was the man. Dawid is greatly angered against this man. Go ahead.
And he said to Nathan, as Yahweh liveth, the man that has done this thing shall surely die, and he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing and because he had no pity.
So first of all, he had to die for his sin. Then he had to restore the lamb fourfold. So there's two parts of that. That's the part where I keep telling people there's forgiveness and then there's atonement. With this atonement, there's restitution. So dying for the sin was step one. Step two was restoring the thing that he took. Go ahead.
And Nathan said to David, you are the man.
You are the man. See, this is how you get just judgment right here. See, when you're talking to somebody and they know who it is, you know, they have a tendency to give you a twisted answer. No. Let me just tell you a story about this man. Go ahead.
Thus said Yahweh El of Israel, I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you out of the hand of Saul. And I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your bosom, and gave you the house of Israel and of Yehuda.
Hey, anybody ever noticed that Saul's name in the Old Testament never turns to Paul? Okay, I just thought I just go ahead, bro.
And if there had been too little, I would moreover have given unto you such and such things. Wherefore have you despised the commandment of Yahweh, to do evil in his sight? You have killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and have taken his wife to be your wife, and have slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon.
Right, had him put in a battle where he knew he would die. Go ahead.
Now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house.
Right. Now, here's that restitution part. See, here's that atonement part that people don't want to deal with. People so busy jumping around about forgiveness, they keep forgetting about this other part that's got to happen. Go ahead.
Because you have despised me, and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus said Yahweh, behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes, and give them unto your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of this sun. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel, and before the sun. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against Yahweh. And Nathan said unto David, Yahweh also has put away your sin. You shall not die.
You see that? He has put away your sin. That ain't got nothing to do with the restitution and the atonement part. You see, we focus on the one part. He put away your sin. All that means is you ain't gonna die for it. That don't mean you back in the right place with your Elohim that you supposed to be. All this stuff got to still take place. See, that's the stuff we want to conveniently forget. Go ahead.
Howbeit, because by this deed you have given great occasion to the enemies of Yahweh to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto you shall surely die.
Right. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 19. And keep in mind, it says King David was a man after Yahweh's own heart. He loved him greatly. He still had to get punished for his sins. And his sin was put away. But there had to be some restitution there. So everything that we go through, you have to consider. When we encounter some hardships and we go to whining about this is difficult, that is difficult. What if you wake up with all that stuff still on your charge? You want to pay for this on this side of the gate. You don't want to wake up and there's something else. Oh man, I forgot to get you to pay for that. Hey man, no, well send me back. I need to go pay for that. I don't want nothing I got to pay for on the other side. Let me pay for mine now. We go to whining about every bit of hardship we get. You need to consider. You got some things to atone for. Take that now. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy chapter 19 and verse 1.
Started at verse 15, I'm sorry. Deuteronomy chapter 19 and started at verse 15.
One witness shall not rise up against a man for any lawlessness, or for any sin, in any sin that he sinneth. At the mouth of 2 witnesses, or at the mouth of 3 witnesses, shall the matter be established. If a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men, between whom the controversy is, shall stand before Yahweh, before the priest and the judges, which shall be in those days.
Right. And in a righteous system is not going to be a system where we go to church on one day and we got one set of individuals, and then if we go to court, there's judges that are different. In a righteous system, the courtroom gonna have that same book. See, in the kingdom, they ain't gonna have you ain't gonna have to have no Black's Law Dictionary where you got to look up words and see what they talking about because they speaking a whole different language than you. No, you should be able to defend yourself out of this very book. Go ahead.
Verse 18. And the judges shall make diligent inquisition. And, behold, if the witness be a false witness, and has testified falsely against his brother, then shall you do unto him as he had thought to have done unto his brother. So shall you put the evil away from among you.
Right. So being a false witness, whatever you tried to do with that false testimony is your judgment. See, lying has the strangest punishment in this book. There's other things that if you do this, this is supposed to happen. Lying is the only one that changes. Whatever you meant with the lie, that's what's supposed to happen to you. Go ahead.
And those which remain shall hear and fear, and shall henceforth commit no more any such evil among you. And your eye shall not pity, but life shall go for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot.
All right. And of course, Yahweh took the judgment part out of man's hand because we know how man has a serious problem in dealing with judgment in a just fashion. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 18. I was just looking at a documentary where some young kids was locked up, and they was locked up for years. It took DNA evidence years later to get those people out of jail. And a whole lot of our folks, they threaten you with 20 or 30 years. So then the guys go in there and they confess to a lesser charge, even though they know they wasn't guilty. The thing is, if you make them folks go through a trial, they try to punish you. They say, oh, you gonna make us go through a trial? Well, we gonna put you up against 30 years. So then now you got people confessing to crimes, doing 5 years in prison, and they didn't do the crime whatsoever, but they were scared of the other alternative, 30 years. And this is why you have so many people locked up that look like us. Go ahead.
Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 1.
Start at verse 12, brother. I'm sorry.
Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before honor is humility.
Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty. See, it's something about those trials and tribulations that opens up the heart to be able to be dealt with. And without those things, we have a tendency to not want to listen. Go ahead.
He that answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame unto him.
Right. And if there's 3 individuals in the story and you ain't heard but one, you ain't heard that matter yet. Go ahead.
The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear? The heart of the prudent gets knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. A man's gift make room for him, and brings him before great men. He that is first in his own cause seems just, but his neighbor comes and searches him.
Right. He that is first in his own cause seems just. That's why people be in a rush to hurry up and come tell you the story first. Let me tell you, let me talk to you, let me talk to you. You got a minute? Let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. No, I need to talk to you. Let me talk to you. You got a minute? Let me talk to you. Why are you in a hurry? I need to talk to you. No, I need to talk to you right now. I need to hurry up and talk to you. Why? Before they talk to you. Right. Go ahead.
The lot causes contentions to cease, and parteth between the mighty. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Whoso finds a wife finds a good thing, and obtains favor of Yahweh.
Right. But yet, we have this Sunday morning approach to this thing is people find a wife and it's a good thing until they get upset. Then they ready to lose the wife. And the courts allow it. Yahshua said, whosoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery. See, there's two parts of that. See, whoever divorces then marries another. This is exactly how things are going on Sunday morning. People are divorcing. They done married 4 or 5 people in the same congregation. And you ask them, how many wives you got? 1. Wait a minute. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. That still equal 1 to you? What kind of count you got going on, Jack? I counted 1 4 times. How you count 1 4 times and still get 1? I don't know how you do that. See, there's something wrong with that math. Now, how we be educated with masters and doctorates, but we can't add? Something wrong with that math. Go ahead.
Verse 23. The poor uses entreaties, but the rich answers roughly. A man that has friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother.
All right. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 11. The Messiah told that woman at the well, you've had 5 husbands. He said, go get your husband. She said, I don't have a husband. He said, you have well said that, but you've said, for you have had 5 husbands. He sure wasn't counting marriage certificates. See, he was counting that unholy matrimony. He said, you've had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not yours. Right. See, therein lies the power of a baptism, being born again, washing off them sins, and all them past marriages people got floating all over the place. When Yahshua said, where's your husband? Who he gonna be talking about? Right. Hebrews chapter 11, and let's read verses 1 through 19.
Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When we're going through trials and tribulations, the first thing we want to see is the end already. Well, how is that faith then if you can already see the end before you start it? Go ahead.
For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of Elohim, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. By faith Abel offered unto Elohim a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, Elohim testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found, because Elohim had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased Elohim.
Right. Now, of course, we know that it's 2 Enochs in the scripture when you go into Genesis. But of course, we have Enoch was translated, but before his translation, he had this testimony. If there's a book of Enoch, why don't Moses mention it? Why don't Hebrews mention it? They have this one line in the New Testament where it talks about in the book of Jude, where it says Enoch spoke of such and such. So these people take this one line and then tell you that now Enoch has a calendar and we all supposed to be going by it. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Yahweh ordained the calendar of man in Genesis 1 and verse 14. When he set the sun, the moon, and the stars, those things were to make our calendar system. Where was Enoch? He wasn't born. So Enoch can't have no calendar. Go ahead.
Verse 6. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that comes to Elohim must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. By faith, Noah, being warned of Elohim of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is by faith.
Right. When you look at these people who have moved by faith, they have done some things that it's very possible that their whole families ridiculed them. Can you imagine trying to build some huge boat and everybody went, what are you doing? What you gonna get all these animals for? Man, it's too crazy. You go home and start telling people, you know, I'm keeping the Sabbath and keeping the holy day. He's crazy. Right. 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 See? So it takes some faith to be able to do things according to what is written. Can you withstand all of this? These people had to withstand some things. When you start talking to other people, they start mocking you. Go ahead.
Verse 8. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing where he went.
Right. See, people don't understand how much faith that is. Go home, tell your woman, we moving. Where we going? I'll find out when we get there. Why you finna have hell? Go ahead. Go ahead and tell her that. See what gonna happen. We moving. And you start packing up all her stuff. See what she do to you. Oh, it's finna be a fight up in now, Jack. You mean tell me you don't have the address of where we going? I can't even GPS this thing. That's that devil right there. That's that devil. Right. Boy, you finna have hell, son. You know how much faith it take to do this? We finna move, but you can't tell me when we moving? Right. Go ahead.
By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Esau and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which has foundation, whose builder and maker is Elohim. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised.
And at some point, everybody had to deal with their thing. They told this woman she gonna have a child. Of course, she laughed. What would you? Somebody come to you at 90, talking about you gonna have a child. So she didn't laugh out loud. She laughed. Yeah, right. The angel said, why you laugh? I ain't laugh. He said, but you did laugh. So she named the boy Esau, which means laughter. Go ahead.
Therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore, innumerable. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth.
Right. They were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. It took me a while to understand, hey man, I'm not like all the rest of these people. See, it takes some understanding in this word to realize, you know what? See, we try our best to try to fit in. So we got a light, and then we try to put a shade on the light so we don't make other people, uncomfortable. So we gonna dim our light down. Keep on dimming your light. You might find your dimmer switch get broke. Mm-hmm. Now you got to walk around with this little dim light, and everybody else light shining bright, but you kept on dimming yours down every time somebody, let me turn that down. That's too bright for you. Let me turn that down. Right. Next time you get ready to turn it back up, it won't go up. Go ahead.
Verse 14. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. But now they desired a better country, that is, an heavenly. Wherefore Elohim is not ashamed to be called their El, for he has prepared for them a city. By faith Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Esau, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son.
Right. Yahweh told him to do something that he was going to do himself. See, that was the part that he didn't understand. Yahweh was going to offer up his son. So I'm going to tempt you with offering up yours, but I'm going to give him back just like I'm going to be able to get mine back. So he wasn't just doing some stuff, There was something connected to this. But you tell your son you're going to offer him up and y'all walking up to the mountain. See how that go? Daddy, where the lamb at for the burnt offering? Don't worry about it. Yahweh provide a lamb. Come on, son, grab them sticks. You see how that go? Go ahead.
Of whom it was said that in Esau shall your seed be called, accounting that Elohim was able to raise him up, even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. By faith Esau blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. By faith Jacob, when he was a dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph, and worshipped, leaning upon the top of his staff.
All right, let's go to Mark chapter 5. Mark chapter 5, and let's read verses 25 through 34. I was wondering why you kept starting at the other part. There you go, there, bro. It would have been nice if I'd have gave you that when we started, huh? Mark chapter 5, and we're going to read verses 25 through 34.
Verse 25. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years.
Now, consider something, how set apart this woman was. Okay? By Hebrew culture, a woman who is on her menstrual cycle is set apart. She is not going to any event. She is not around people. Her situation lasts for 12 years. You understand how much hell this woman has gone through? They're not even sitting next to this woman. They're not dealing with her like that. This woman has gone through pure D hell. And we swear we got some problem. We swear we got some problem. You ain't never sat down somewhere and somebody just got up. I mean, maybe a racial thing where they just got up and didn't want to sit down. I'm talking about people who look just like you, just get up and just move when you sit down. Go ahead.
And had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse.
So she tried to go to the doctors. She tried to do all of those things. She tried everything that she knew how. Now our problem is we have issues and won't even try to go get help. Go ahead.
When she had heard of Yahshua, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Yahshua immediately, knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, and said, who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, you see the multitude thronging you, and saith you, who touched me?
Right, because everybody touching him. They pulling on him. They pulling, pushing him. And he like, what do you mean, who touched you? Everybody touch you. Go ahead.
And he looked round about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him, and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, daughter, your faith had made you whole. Go in peace, and be whole of your plague.
Right. Your faith has made you whole. The part of her faith was the stuff that she did before she got to Yahshua. See, we got this thing, not understanding. Her faith part was already, her faith went before her. By the time she got to him, her belief that if she just got near him, this would take care of it. So the part of her faith was a pre-done situation. All she needed to do was get to him in her heart and mind. There's several instances where before the Messiah does something, he asks, do you believe that I can do this? Go ahead, bro.
I was just going to say, you know, at that point of her life, going to physicians, spend all her money, she could have said, man, the heck with this. This is the way I'm going to die. Just forget it.
Hey, that's what most does do. If something don't work first or second time, we done with it. But 12 years is a long time to have a serious situation, especially among Old Testament Israel and how they dealt with blood on every level. That was a very difficult situation. Let's go to John chapter 5. Yohanan chapter 5, and let's read verses 1 through 14.
Verse 1. After this, there was a feast of the Yehudis, and Yahshua went up to Jerusalem. Now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethsaida, having 5 porches.
Now, it says, which is called in the Hebrew tongue. A tongue is a language. So when people tell you, you know, I called the Holy Ghost and I start speaking in tongues, and they start yelling out a whole bunch of goo gobbly-goo. You see how I said when people can't explain something, they just make up a doctrine that fit it? Tongue means language. You speak in the English tongue, and then you speak that Jamaican tongue. That stuff you be saying, I don't know what he talking. Hey, bro, I'm gonna need you to speak English around me, bro. Say, I don't speak island tongue. You understand? I speak English tongue. Tongue is a language. Go ahead.
In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool and troubled the water. Whosoever then first, after the troubling of the water, stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease he had.
Now, y'all can just picture how horrible this gonna be here. First in the water gets healed. Jacob punch you. You know what I'm saying? Hey, come on, man. Folks about to go, you know, folks done went to their little Black Friday and some of them got black eyes with they black, cause they remember when that Power Ranger first came out, folk was body slamming each other trying to get a Power Ranger. So you talking about getting healed, first one get in the water, hey man, Jake do something to you. So this can be an awfully physical situation right here. Go ahead.
And a certain man was there, which had an infirmity 38 years.
38 years. This is probably the majority of his life. He has had this problem, this infirmity, 38 years. Go ahead.
When Yahshua saw him lie, and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, Will you be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man.
Stop. Now, here is where situations can already get out of hand even before. He says, now, first one get in the water. 38 years he had the problem. Yahshua has a tendency, if you pay attention to this book, he has a tendency to come up with a rhetorical question. But if you want them nasty people, you're going to cuss him out already. Will you be made whole? What you think, I don't want to be made whole? You don't think I want to be made whole? What's wrong with you? See, that's where we end up losing our gift before anything happens. Because here come Dr. Nasty coming out. See? Because you don't get the rhetorical question that's being asked. Will you be made whole? See, the book says be careful because some of you have entertained angels unawares. So you prejudge somebody by how they look and end up cussing them out only to find out at your judgment, yeah, I sent 2 angels to come talk to you. You ain't never seen no angel come talk to me. I ain't never talked to no angel. Yeah, you remember that brother that was sleeping on that park bench? Huh? Right. Go ahead.
The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man, when the waters trouble, to put me in the pool. But while I am coming, another steps down before me.
You have any idea how frustrating that's got to be? Year after year after year, he can get there, and as soon as he try to step down, somebody else step down before him. Go ahead.
But he's still there and he's still trying.
Exactly. See? Most of us gonna try 1 or 2 times. I ain't going no more. I done already tried that. Somebody gonna step down faster than me. But he's still showing up. Go ahead.
Yahshua says unto him, Rise, take up your bed and walk.
Look, just for you keep showing up. You don't even need to get in the water, man. Just rise up, man. Take your bed and go on about your business. Go ahead.
And immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed and walked. And on the same day was the Shabbat. The Yehudis therefore said unto him that was cured, It is a Shabbat day. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed.
Now, you know the man couldn't walk before that. But folks, something else, boy. Go ahead.
He answered them, He that made me whole, the same said unto me, Take up your bed and walk. Then asked they him, What man is that which said unto you, Take up your bed and walk? And he that was healed knew not who it was, for Yahshua had conveyed himself away, a multitude being in that place. Afterward Yahshua findeth him in the temple, and said unto him,
Pay attention. Go ahead.
Behold, you are made whole. Sin no more, lest the worst thing come upon you.
Consider that. He has had an infirmity 38 years. He is now healed of the infirmity. But be careful how you walk, lest you get a worse thing than that thing that's been plaguing you 38 years. If it's worse than that, you got some serious issues, Jack. Consider those things. Let's go to our 2 Kings chapter 4. See, a lot of times we want to talk about faith as, you know, this rosy red institution, not understanding that there's some trials and tribulations connected to that. 2 Kings chapter 4. And we're going to start that at verse 1.
Verse 1. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant did fear Yahweh, and the creditors come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for you? Tell me, what have you in the house? And she said, Your handmaid has not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. Then he said, Go, borrow you vessels abroad of all your neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when you are come in, you shall shut the door upon you and upon your sons, and shall pour out into all those vessels, and you shall set aside that which is full. So she went from him, and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There's not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of Elohim, and he said, Go sell the oil and pay the debt, and live you and your children off the rest. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to the Shunammite.
To pass to Shunem. That's what a Shunammite is a person of Shunem. Go ahead.
And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where was a great woman. And she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold now, I perceive that this is an holy man of Elohim, which passes by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray you, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he comes to us, that he shall turn in thither. And it fell on the day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said unto Gehazi his servant, Call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, Say now unto her, Behold, you have been careful for us with all this care. What is it to be done for you? Would you be spoken for to the king, or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among mine own people. And he said, What then is it to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Verily she has no child, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, About this season, according to the time of life, you shall embrace a son. And she said, No, my master, you man of Elohim, do not lie unto your handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life.
Now, this was connected, of course, to the things that she did beforehand. She had been doing this without asking the man of Elohim for anything. Afterward, he asked, what shall be done for you? Go ahead.
Verse 18. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said unto his father, My head, my head. And he said to a lad, Carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then he died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Elohim, and shut the door upon him, and went out. And she called unto her husband and said, Send me, I pray you, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of Elohim and come again. And he said, Wherefore will you go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Shabbat. And she said, It shall be well. Then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, Drive and go forward. Slack not your riding for me, except I bid you. So she went and came unto the man of Elohim to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of Elohim saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, Behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run now, I pray you, to meet her, and say unto her, Is it well with you?
Now, this is the man of Elohim. This man has serious spirit upon him to be able to do all of these things. So now this situation has happened, but he has no idea of this situation. Go ahead.
Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, It is well. And when she came to the man of Elohim to the hill, she caught him by the feet.
Right. Now, verse 26, run, I pray you, to meet her, and say unto her, Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, It is well. What is she trying to get to?
Him.
She trying to get to him. She ain't trying to get to the servant. I don't need to talk to you. I need to talk to the man. I don't need to talk to the man sitting next to the man. I need to talk to the man. Oh, yeah. It's fine. Let me get to him. Go ahead.
But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of Elohim said, Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her, and Yahweh has hid it from me, and has not told me.
Right. Now, Yahweh hid it from him. Why? See, there's certain things that we think we need to know, but this gives her an opportunity to act on her faith. Because he didn't know. See, there's certain things that are withheld for a reason, to see what you gonna do. All of this is her doing. The husband don't even know, well, where you going? Why you doing that? It was her idea to even make the room for the man of Elohim. Let's put a little bed out for him, little table and stuff. Then something happened to the boy. Hey, send me one of them, sir. Let me go see the man of Elohim. Well, it ain't the Sabbath or the new moon. How you gonna go? It's gonna be all right. Just let me go. Go ahead.
2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 28. Then she said, Did I desire a son of my master? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, Gird up your loins, and take my staff in your hand, and go your way. If you meet any man, salute him not. And if any salute you, answer him not again. And lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As Yahweh lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. And he arose and followed her.
See, she is insisting upon this right here. Now, Gehazi gone by his business. She said, I'm going with you. Go ahead.
And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, saying, The child is not awake.
Now you see why the woman's so focused? No. I don't need to talk to the servant. I don't need to talk to the man sitting next to the man. I need to talk to the man. I'm not leaving you. So he sent the servant. The servant wasn't able to wake the child up. Go ahead.
And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead, and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore, and shut the door upon them two, and prayed unto Yahweh. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, Call the Shunammite. So he called her. And when she was coming on to him, he said, Take up your son. Then she went in and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground and took up her son and went out.
Right. When it comes down to doing what is necessary, we sometimes there's some obstacles that it takes an act of faith to keep going, even when you think a door is closed. Let's go to chapter 5 and start that at verse 1.
2 Kings chapter 5 and verse 1. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him Yahweh had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. And the Syrians had gone out by companies, and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would Elohim my master were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy.
Now, if they mistreated this girl, you think she would be talking about recovering anybody of leprosy? Go ahead.
And one went in and told his master, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go, and I'll send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed, and took with him 10 talents of silver, and 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now when this letter is come unto you, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes, and said, Am I Elohim, to kill and to make alive, that this man does send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. And it was so, when Elisha the man of Elohim had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore have you rent your clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall come again to you, and you shall be clean. But Naaman was angry, and went away, and said, Behold, I thought he would surely come out to me, and stand, and call on the name of Yahweh his El, and strike his hand over the place, and recover the leper.
Right. He waiting for a big show. So here it is. We want deliverance. We want healing. But then we want to direct how it's going to happen. Do a great show. Let's do that stuff you see on TV. But you know, they put their hands on the people's head and they just all fall out. Ah! Hit the floor. People want to see that kind of show. That's what they want to see. He's, man, go over there and dip yourself in the joy. What? No, man, you supposed to do like a magic trick or something. You know, do the whole thing, man. Why everybody watch? What? Go ahead.
Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. And his servants came near and spake unto him and said, My father, if the prophet had bid you to do some great thing, would you not have done it?
Mm-hmm.
How much rather then, when he says to you, Wash and be clean? Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of Elohim. And his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean.
Right. So if we are going to be healed and have those things, we don't get to direct how those things are going to be done. Let's back up to 2 Kings chapter 3. And let's start that at verse 1.
2 Kings chapter 3 and verse 1. Now Jehoram, the son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel and Samaria the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, and reigned 12 years.
Understand, Israel and Yehuda ended up being a split nation. They had a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. So they are no longer one nation of Israel at this point. So they end up sometimes warring against one another, sometimes standing with one another, but it's a big division in that, in the land of Israel. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And he wrought evil in the sight of Yahweh, but not like his father and like his mother, for he put away the image of Baal that his father had made. Nevertheless, he cleaved on to the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom. And Mesha, king of Moab, was a sheep master, and rendered unto the king of Israel 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with the wool. But it came to pass, when Ahab was dead, that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. And King Jehoram went out to Samaria the same time, and numbered all Israel. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat the king of Yehuda, saying, The king of Moab has rebelled against me. Will you go with me against Moab to battle? And he said, I'll go up. I am as you are, my people as your people, and my horses as your horses.
Right. No seeking of anything at this point to Yahweh. Just saying, hey, if you go to war, I'm going to go to war. And this is the thing that people want to do. I'm going to be angry at whoever you angry with. Go ahead.
And he said, Which way shall we go? Which way shall we go up? And he answered, The way through the wilderness of Edom. So the king of Israel went, and the king of Yehuda, and the king of Edom. And they fetched a compass of 7 days, 7 days' journey, and there was no water for the host and for the cattle that followed them. And the king of Israel said, Alas, that Yahweh hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. But Jehoshaphat said, Is there not here a prophet of Yahweh, that we may inquire of Yahweh by him?
Right. After go ahead and taking on the journey, then realize that there's issues. Now, the question then comes up, is there a prophet we can inquire of to Yahweh? Go ahead.
And one of the kings of Israel's servants answered and said, Here is Elisha the son of Shaphat, which poured water on the hands of Elijah. And Jehoshaphat said, The word of Yahweh is with him. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Edom, went down to him. And Elisha said unto the king of Israel, What have I to do with you? Get you to the prophets of your father, and to the prophets of your mother. And the king of Israel said unto him, No, for Yahweh hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. And Elisha said, As Yahweh of hosts lives, before whom I stand, surely, were it not that I regarded the presence of Jehoshaphat the king of Yehuda, I would not look toward you nor see you.
Right. So you start to figure out why other people want to include you in their battles. Understand, there are 3 kings gathered here, but Yahweh ain't here but one of them. He said, if the king of Yehuda wasn't here, I wouldn't even see the other of y'all. See, now you figure out why when other people got an issue with somebody, they try to get you involved. See? So you have to go back to this to the middle part of that. Get to the prophets of your father and to the prophets of your mother. Go over there and talk to them. If it wasn't for this man, I wouldn't even hear your cause. So you have to be careful, Israel, how you get involved in situations, because everybody wants you on their side. Let's go to Numbers chapter 22. When I was little, I used to have it had to be about 9 years old, and I'm in a 3-way conversation between my stepdaddy, my brother, and my mama. Most of the time, my brother and my stepdad, they going at it, and each one of them was trying to get me on their side. And I'm like, I don't know if y'all noticed, but I'm 9. Why everybody's trying to get the 9-year-old on their side? That didn't make no sense to me then. It made perfect sense now. Everybody want Israel on their side. See, even these people, as they make merchandise and rule over you here in this land, those people that have the children of Yehuda get to be in power. Everybody want to possess you. But see, we have opened ourselves up for those things, not walking in the culture that Yahweh has given us. Numbers chapter 22, and let's start at verse 1.
And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was sore afraid of the people, because they were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, Now shall this company lick up all that are round about us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak the son of Zippor was king of the Moabites at that time. He sent messengers therefore unto Balaam the son of Beor to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray you, curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you blessed is blessed, and he whom you cursed is cursed.
Right. So curse me these people, because I got a problem with them. See? Go ahead.
And the leaders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed from the rewards of divination in their hand. And they came unto Balaam, and spake unto him the words of Balak. And he said unto them, Lodge here this night, and I'll bring you word again, as Yahweh shall speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam. And Elohim came unto Balaam, and said, What men are these with you? And Balaam said unto Elohim, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent unto me, saying, Behold, there is a people come out of Egypt, which covers the face of the earth. Come now, curse me them. Peradventure I shall be able to overcome them, and drive them out. And Elohim said unto Balaam, You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed.
You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. Understand, now these people done already went through hell in Egypt. These people have already gone through all of this turmoil, but now, because of what this man desires, he wants these people to be cursed because he's got an issue with them. Once again, I tell Israel, be careful about the things you get yourself involved in. Go ahead.
Verse 13. And Balaam rose up in the morning, and said unto the princes of Balak, Get you into your land, for Yahweh refused to give me leave to go with you. And the princes of Moab rose up, and they went unto Balak, and said, Balaam refused to come with us. And Balak sent yet again princes more, and more honorable than they. And they came to Balaam, and said to him, Thus said Balak the son of Zippor, Let nothing, I pray you, hinder you from coming unto me. For I will promote you unto very great honor, and I'll do whatsoever you saith unto me. Come therefore, I pray you, curse me this people. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, If Balak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of Yahweh my El, to do less or more.
Right. And people don't understand how serious this is. One of the biggest so-called heroes of America, especially among the Republicans, they all love Ronald Reagan. Let me tell you something. Ronald Reagan wouldn't make a move until he talked to his psychic first. People think this, oh, well, you know, that was kind of stuff that was done in them days. He had a psychic. This man is supposed to be the leader of the most powerful country in this time. And he had to go and talk to his psychic before he made decisions. So what if the psychic had an off day? See, we think this is just stuff we read. No, this stuff, these folks still doing this. They still going to inquire of witches. And these are folks that people don't want to vote for. You can vote for that witch, you know. But the witch is the one directing the one that people voted for. Let's go to Romans chapter 4. Romans chapter 4, and we're going to start that at verse 1.
What shall we say then that Abraham our father, as pertaining to the flesh, has found? For if Abraham were justified by works, he has whereof to glory, but not before Elohim.
Works, not works of the law. They are, when you also read in the book of James, it says faith without works is dead. Your works are your deeds. When they're talking about works of this law, understand they're talking about animal sacrifice, because that's how man got justified. That's how the atonement was set forth. That's how man got back in his right place with Elohim, by animal sacrifice. Go ahead.
Verse 3. For what saith the scripture? Abraham believed Elohim, and it was counted unto him for righteousness. Now to him that works is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt. But to him that works not, but believeth on him that justifies the ungodliness, his faith is counted for righteousness. Even as David also describes the blessedness of the man unto whom El imputeth righteousness without works, saying, Blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom the Adonai will not impute sin. Cometh this blessedness then upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness.
Right. Children of Israel were given circumcision. The rest of the world were not given circumcision. People do not understand what circumcision means. Circumcision means that you are under the covenant. See, all the covenants are sealed in blood. We don't understand that. When you get in this book, it says he that is circumcised is a debtor to do the whole law. People don't even know what they're doing when they go and get their child circumcised. People just do stuff because they heard somebody else do it. Folk don't even read the book. They don't even know what they're doing. Israel was given that. We were given circumcision. The other nations wasn't given that. So they go out and get a circumcision, then talk about, well, we ain't got to deal with the law. What you get circumcision for? Go ahead.
Verse 10. How was it then reckoned? When he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision? Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the faith which he had yet being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also. And the father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of that faith of our father Abraham, which he had being yet uncircumcised.
Right. So people will look back and say, well, before I knew his name of Yahshua, I could still pray and I could still get direction and I could still do such and such. He gave him all these promises being yet uncircumcised. But yet, when the time came that, all right, it's time for you to move up on this level, you don't get to stay at the old level once he moves you up. But you can't throw away everything that was done in the old level. See, that's our problem. We have this thing that we want to deal with one part and just deal with where we are and not understand that it's a process to get to that. So you got people that are coming to the truth of this word, then they won't listen to any other gospel music because they say, well, you know, that's that old stuff. Man, those are people that from the same place that you came from. They tried their best to worship the Most High the best way they knew how. And they did the best that they could with the information that was given unto them. But once Yahweh move you up on another level of information, you don't get to go back. Go ahead.
Verse 13. For the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed, through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. For if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is made void, and the promise made of none effect. Because the law works wrath, for there were no law, for where no law is, there's no transgression.
Right. For the definition of sin is the transgression of the law. So if there is still sin, there is still law. See, law is broken down into three factions. We have dietary law, moral law, and sacrificial law. Sacrificial law was fulfilled by Christ. Moral law and dietary law are still in effect. To this day, if somebody steals something, you still get mad if somebody stole your stuff, right? But people will tell you, well, the law is nailed to the cross. Well, why you get mad when the dude stole your radio then? What you get mad for if the law is nailed to the cross? See, people don't understand the difference between them different factions of the law. Go ahead.
Therefore it is of faith that it might be by grace.
Hey, don't they have 3 levels of law here? They got 3 different levels of government, right? They have judicial, legislative, and whatever that other one is. Go ahead.
To the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, not to that only which is of the law, but to that also which is of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, before him whom he believed, even Elohim, who quickeneth the dead and calls those things which be not as though they were, who against hope believed in hope, that he might become the father of many nations, according to that which was spoken, so shall your seed be. And being not weak in faith, he considered not his own body now dead, when he was about 100 years old, neither yet the deadness of Sarah's womb. He staggered not at the promise of Elohim through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to Elohim. And being fully persuaded that what he had promised, he was able also to perform. And therefore it was imputed to him for righteousness.
It was imputed to him for righteousness in that he believed it could happen. Now you think about why the Mashiach would turn around and ask before he did miracles, do you believe that I can do this? Go ahead.
Now it was not written for his sake alone that it was imputed to him, but for us also, to whom it shall be imputed, if we believe on him that raised up Yahshua our Adonai from the dead, who was delivered for our offenses and was raised again for our justification.
Keep going.
Therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with Elohim through our Adonai Yahshua the Anointed One, by whom also we have access by faith into this grace wherein we stand, and rejoice in hope of the glory of Elohim. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation works patience.
Right. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations, not whine in tribulation. We glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation works patience. See, there's some things that we want to get to the end of the road, but we don't want to go through all the stop signs and all the parts on the street that get us to the end of the road. We just want to go to sleep and wake up at the end of the road. But if you bypass the process, the power is in the process, not in the destination. People don't get smart because they got a degree. If that's the case, they can just pass it out. All right, here go a PhD. And you like, I'm smart. No, that ain't how that works. You had to go through a process. After the process, they gave you the piece of paper. The piece of paper don't make you smart. It was the process of going through all the things. The piece of paper is just your clarification, your seal of completion that you completed that part of the work. That's for everybody else. That don't make you no smarter because you got the piece of paper. It was the stuff you went through that did that. See, we focus on the end part. We focusing on the piece of paper. Go ahead.
Verse 4, and patience, experience, and experience hope. And hope makes not ashamed, because the love of Elohim is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us. For when we were yet without strength, in due time the Anointed One died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet peradventure for a good man some would even dare to die. But Elohim commendeth his love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, the Anointed One died for us.
Right. Not being anything worthy for someone to die for. Go ahead.
Much more then, being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from anger through him. For if, when we were enemies, we reconciled to Elohim by the death of his Son, much more, being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. And not only so, but we also joy in Elohim through the Adonai Yahshua, the Anointed One, by whom we have now received the atonement.
You see that? Not that we have received forgiveness. By this we have received atonement. So some of the very things that we argue about, some of the very things that we're praying to be removed from us are the very things that give us the opportunity of atonement. So you're asking the Most High to take away the very thing that's helping you. Because we want to be comfortable. But I keep telling people, ain't nobody ever went to the gym, sat on the bench, and got strong. They had to go through some discomfort of actually going in there and working out. And some of the things that are going to come upon the children of Israel, we're going to definitely have to get our minds in the right place, because America is getting ready to truly show us what they think of you. Understand something. We weren't brought here to be citizens. We weren't brought here to live alongside of these people. They brought you here for you to work for them. That's what you were brought here for. And we're still doing it. That's why so many of us in the prison system still working for corporations who won't hire us on the street. This brother's working for every Fortune 500 company you can name, except they working for a quarter an hour in the prisons. Those prisons moving to the country towns, in the country town where my grandmama stay. The prison moved down and the mill shut down. People ain't put two and two together. Why do you think the mill shut down? When the prison came, the mill shut down because all the work went to the prison. They said, we don't need the mill no more. They all making money by sending all that work to the prison. So it is beneficial to lock us up. But Yahweh said, you shall be punished 7 times more for your sins. And we keep thinking that this is a racial thing. This ain't about race. This is about what Yahweh your Elohim has given you. He has given you a culture. And when we don't walk in that culture, we have serious problems that end up coming toward us. But that's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.